So the last talk was all about how to organize and record all of your thoughts, and this one is kind of like, now that you've gotten your thoughts all organized, how do you present them to other people to help them understand them? So, let's say you've got a great idea for something, and you're giving a presentation at work, but as you're talking, whether you're just presenting ideas in a meeting or giving a formal presentation, you kind of get asked directly or indirectly, like, get to the point, what are you trying to say? Or maybe you're done giving a big presentation and people are asking questions and you're like, wait, didn't I thought I said that, or at least I tried to say that during the presentation. Or if you've ever just given a talk and then you kind of get some blank stares and you're like, oh, I did something wrong there, but I didn't know quite what. Well, a lot of these could be traced back to, it's not the information that you're presenting. It's presenting that information at the wrong level of granularity, or presenting it in the wrong way to the wrong audience. So, one thing you do when you're taking notes, for example, is those are all for yourself. You're presenting information in a way that you can understand. But when you're presenting information to other people, it really matters who they are, how they think. And so this talk it's a brief talk about how to present at the right level of granularity for the audience that you're presenting to. So here are some examples of audiences that you might be presenting to in a work setting: executives, managers, peers, cross-functional partners, departmental team members, and I'll define each of those. So executives would be your C-suite, anybody in senior leadership. Managers could be your manager, could be group of managers, it could be managers of managers. Peers are people who more or less do the same job as you, even if they're in a different department. Cross-functional partners, that would be like people on a different team. So maybe you're the marketing team and you're presenting to the engineering team, for example. Departmental team members, these would be people that you consider to be on your team. So people who work in a different role but are on the same team. So maybe in the software group, QA testers and developers, different roles, but basically the same team. So before you present to any audience, the most important thing to do is ask yourself this question: what is my objective with this presentation? What is the main goal, the main purpose or message that you want to convey? Is it that you want people to take a certain action, or you want people to learn a certain thing? This is where, if you don't do this, then you're kind of, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You want to start with figuring out what really is the objective of the presentation, regardless of who your audience is going to be. So write that down first. And then now I'll go through those different audience groups I mentioned and explain, just some quick tips about how to present to these different levels. So if you're presenting to executives, you want to think how they think. So executives, they're thinking, about the value. What is this that you're proposing, and why should I care? So you want to present at a high level. You want it to be very strategic. Make it make sense to them from a business perspective. Their mentality is, why should I invest in this or sign off on it? Really focus at a high level and focus on the benefit to the business. Whereas if you're presenting to managers, it's a little bit different, because they are typically thinking at a very, very strategic level, but also they are thinking about the people that they supervise and how this thing is actually going to get executed. So they're thinking at both a strategic level and an operational level. So show that plan for success, not just why you should be doing it. And then also, if you're aware of it, how this work or this proposal aligns with the goals of the team that you're aware of. So it's a little bit different than presenting to executives. If you're presenting to peers, people who do a similar role to you, you want to be very detailed relative to the other groups I mentioned. You're focused on, how are we going to execute this? Who does what? Coming up with a plan, and it's really focused about who's going to do what, how do we collaborate together to get this plan executed. Next, cross-functional partners. So that would be people on a different team than you. And so these people might have very different domain expertise. They're the marketing group, they're the engineering group. You want to keep it very broad because of that, because they might not have a lot of the same information or knowledge that you do. So, don't use too much jargon, don't get too much detail. You really want to focus on the buy-in. How can we collaborate because we need more than one team to, you know, follow through on this big project. So keep it broad and really focus on the collaborative aspect, um, you know, and what these teams have in common, and try to speak to that level of understanding. And then lastly, if you're speaking to people on your team, the people you work with every day, they're going to have already have an understanding of the big picture. They're going to know the same domain. They're going to have an established process already. So you're going to go completely the opposite and go detailed, go into a deep dive on, okay, let's figure out a way to make this happen. Who's going to do what? You're going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. It should be a very specific plan of action, clearly defined roles and responsibilities, very tactical, very focused on, okay, here's the plan and here's how we're going to execute it. And then next, any good presentation should have some amount of visuals included, and those visuals will vary depending on who you're presenting to. So as you're putting together a presentation, think about the different types of visuals that would be most useful or most clear to convey certain concepts to the audience that you want to talk to. So could be a chart, you know, could be a picture, could be a meme, you know, some kind of diagram, and then think about how you can, instead of putting down the words and having a picture in addition to that, think about how you can really add a good visual and then add any words that you think would be necessary to supplement it, but see how much you can tell with a really good picture, you know, whether it's a roadmap or something that, or a chart that people are really going to understand clearly. um, so I'll get into an example of this. So for this example, say that you have a proposal or an idea that you want to present to the cross-functional partners, that is a different team, versus presenting to people on your team. So for somebody on a different team, you're going to keep it very general. For somebody on your own team, it's going to be much more detailed. For somebody, for a group on a different team, you're going to focus on this value proposition. You really want to get buy-in. Why are you going to do this? Whereas you kind of don't really need to do that when presenting to people on your team. You can get right into the nitty gritty of who's going to do what on an individual role level. Whereas presenting to different teams, you don't need to worry so much about who's going to do what in an individual level. It's more like what team is going to be responsible for what area of it. And when you're with your own team, because they have so much specific knowledge, you can really ask for feedback. What do you think about this? Are there any ways to improve this? You can have it be a bit more of a collaborative process. If you're talking to another team, you want to focus on the general feasibility of it, keep it kind of high level, and focus on a timeline, because those are the things that are a challenge when you're working with different teams. Whereas when you're working with your own team, it can be much more like, okay, do we see any technical challenges to this? Are there any other kind of operational or process challenges in the way that we work? And then with your visual aids, think about when you're presenting to a different team, visuals that communicate things at a high level, the big picture, you know, a roadmap, some kind of diagram that's kind of show how everything fits together, maybe what team does what. Whereas with your own team, it can be more of a detailed flow chart, like step by step. Or you can do, if you say you're presenting a UI concept, it can be some mock-ups, like, okay, here's a picture of what we're actually going to get, be building together. And then last but not least, after your presentation, it's really great if you take some time to reflect on it. If possible, record yourself and watch it afterwards. I know it's really hard. I rarely do it, but it's really useful, you know, and then just reflect, was this level of granularity appropriate for that audience? You know, which parts of the presentation did people seem most engaged by? And then also, you know, did they seem confused by any of it? Did you get any of those blank stares? And then also, you know, it's a good thing to be thinking about and paying attention when you're watching other people's presentation. How do other people present to different audiences? What do other people do that keep you engaged? And then lastly, a lot of this content is taken from this guide that my colleague Ariel wrote, and it's called Making Your Message Matter. And so these slides are really just kind of a summary of this guide, this checklist that she created. And this is a free Google Doc that we can make available in the recording, or I can put it in the notes. And so you can print it out or have it on your screen. And so anytime you are putting together a presentation, it can help you focus on, okay, who am I presenting to, and what level of granularity, what level of detail do I really want in order to make my message the most clear and understandable for this specific audience. And with that, that's it. Thank you.